Okay. I think it's a premiere at Ecosummit to have a 100% women's panel. So please join me in congratulating the ladies to participate to this premiere. So let me start by introducing Gina Domanig. Do I pronounce it right?
Domanig.
Domanig. Katya. I'm not going to worry. And Elena Bou. And what I would like to do is to ask each of you to introduce what you're doing in 2 to 3 minutes so that we get a chance to understand your business.
Sure, I'll go ahead and start. So I'm the managing partner of Emerald Technology Ventures. We've been investing in venture space, this clean tech space, since 2000 when I started the business. We invest in industrial IT and materials businesses mainly focused on the energy and the water markets. So obviously energy being much larger, a lot of what we do is in the energy space. We manage 4 funds on the venture side. Most of our, I think all of our investors in our 4th fund are large corporations, so very much a similar model as Mathieu explained. Basic and extended arm of large corporations from Asia, Europe, and North America, working together with their open innovation teams and forging then the alliances with startup companies, whether we end up investing in those companies or not. We invest in Europe, Israel, and North America. We've got offices in Zurich and Toronto. I'm based in the Zurich office. And usually we invest around early commercialization phase.
Thank you. Katya?
So I come from a company called Systemiq. We're new. We've only been around for about 1.5 years. We are mission-driven, for-profit, and our main goal is to accelerate transition to more sustainable economic systems. We do that in 3 ways, across 3 sectors and 3 offices. In terms of the business models, we do 3 things. One is what we call coalition building, which is working together with large groups of corporates and helping really set the high-level strategic agenda across these different sectors. The one most relevant probably to the conversation today is something called the Energy Transition Commission, which is run by my colleague Faustine, who's here. Then the second business model we have is working with individual corporates, individual partners on incubating new business models. So for example, we worked with Veolia on the urban farming opportunity and tried to come up with a kind of business model there. And finally, the investment side, which is most relevant to today, where we focus on early stage investment of 1 to 2 million into disruptive companies across our areas of focus. The areas of focus are energy, sustainable land use, and circular economy, which is more of a theme than a sector, but we apply it to a few different systems. And finally, the offices. We're currently in London, Munich, and Jakarta, and we are 50 people as of today, of which we have a small dedicated investment team, which I head up, and the rest of our colleagues are focused on the other business models that we have, and we work sort of collaboratively across all of those.
Pretty impressive for a startup. 50 people after 1.5 years of activity. Congratulations. Elena?
Yes, I'm Elena Bou. I am Innovation Director of InnoEnergy. InnoEnergy is a private company. We were founded in the year 2010 by 27 shareholders coming from the energy industry, universities, and research, and supported by the European Institute of Technology. Our mission is to foster innovation and entrepreneurship in sustainable energy. And we have 3 different business lines. One of it has to do with supporting new businesses. That is why we are here today. And we do it as partners in all the business creation phases and also as an investors. We have 8 offices currently. We are active in 24 countries. And we have more than 300 partners, many of them present here, like Iberdrola, like Veolia, Inogi, and so on. And then we have supported 195 startups. We have equity in 98 of them. So we have probably one of the largest portfolio, a lot of headaches, but it's fun. And the strategy is that we start investing on them since a very early stage. And then we are accompanying them through the whole process. The only thing that we are looking for is that they should have financially viable and impact, and this means reduction of the leverage cost of energy, reduction of greenhouse emission, and security in the energy supply. We are investing in all the fields of sustainable energy, but just as the recent news is that in October, we have been appointed by the Commissioner, the Vice President of the European Commission, Maros Sefcovic, in charge of the Energy Union. They have appointed InnoEnergy to lead the EU Battery Alliance. We are working with other actors, and these are good news, because the strategy that is going to be developed, it implies a new market in Europe that in the year 2025 is going to be 250 billion, with B, of euros. So that for the startups that are in the storage and batteries field, just happy to talk to them, and also with corporates if they want to work together with us.
Excellent. When we look at the audience, I think 10% of the participants are women. What does it take to be a woman in the venture industry? What do you bring to this industry that men don't bring? I will not ask the question the other side. We'll have a panel in Paris where men can say what they bring to the industry that women don't bring. But who wants to answer first?
But I think it's easier to be a woman in a senior position in this industry if you happen to run the company.
Okay, fair enough.
I think it's probably a lot harder for women who join a firm and hope to one day get promoted to being a partner level. I think that is difficult. So I never experienced that, luckily. I started the firm, so I wasn't dependent upon other people to promote me. But I think it is quite remarkable that the few women that are in this business tend to be the heads of their firms, which makes me wonder what happens to the young women in other firms. How come they're not being promoted?
I guess I probably sit more in the second category of people who don't have their own firm just yet. But I've always worked in quite male-dominated environments. I used to work in investment banking and private equity, now this space. I think I've only ever worked in one area that wasn't, which was more focused on impact and development. I personally don't like to think in gender terms quite as much, but I think that there are certain realities that are kind of just are there. I think something we discussed a little bit beforehand, which is around kind of the lack of role models, which I think is a big problem, because I think it means that whether you realize it or not, you create a certain picture in your mind about what a leadership team looks like and what capabilities it has, and kind of how you get there, and even if you don't realize that your stereotypes are built that way, I think they are. And so I think as I look ahead and as I look up, having few examples to work towards is kind of part of the problem. And I guess it takes creating your own example to overcome that. So.
I think many years ago there was a study that they said that the successful company of the century 21st was going to be female. And then I said, oh my God, it's going to be female. And they were not talking that they were going to be ruled majority by women, but they said that they had some competencies that are needed to do business today that typically, naturally, business has. For instance, active listening. For instance, communication skills. You need communication now is key for your investors, with your customers, with your own team. Resilience. And also this kind of not being generous, working more like a team. Probably perhaps it's not politically correct, but typically the male leadership style is very based on ego. It's very based on a kind of a struggle. Probably if we go to the history, that is the role that we have. And women, in that sense, are much more looking common zones, common areas where we can work together. So in that sense, I think that it is good. And the other point, I think, especially as I am very focused on innovation and looking for new ways to do business and to do startups and also investment, one key thing is creativity. And to have creativity, you need diversity. And this is the raw material. So that is why we are looking for teams that are multidisciplinary, but also with different genders. So somehow if we are not having these complementary teams, and I'm talking about complementarity, then we are diminishing our potential in our companies to do better business and to have better results. So even economically, apparently it is a good idea.
Yeah,
Gina?
and I would build on that as well. I think that, you know, there are different skills that, if you like using generalities, but women tend to have and men have other skills. And in our firm, we're 4 partners now. The other 3 are men. And we're quite honest about, you know, you take this one because it'll probably be easier for you to deal with this guy. And, you know, we've known each other. We've been working together almost 20 years. And for example, I mean, we want to have strong entrepreneurs. We want to have people who are very convinced about themselves. But there is also, you know, the danger that it gets to be almost too much, that they're very, very egomaniac types. And then we often talk amongst us and they say, you take them, Gina, because you'll probably be able to deal with them better. It's somehow I think these types,
sensitivity,
exactly, these types,
different.
they don't take it as being so so much of a force against them, but rather working together with them. So I have a little bit of an easier time kind of getting these guys on my side and working together with them through difficult times.
Does being a woman make conflict solving easier, you think?
Definitely.
Definitely. I have that experience as well. One different question. You probably don't have that many projects led by women. We saw a few this morning. How do you react when you have a female entrepreneur? Are you asking more or less? Are you more inclined to invest because it's a woman? Are you... How do you react?
For me, I mean, the interesting thing about this topic is that if we go to statistics, because then we lead away from perception, is that 11% of the entrepreneurs in sustainable energy are female. So already there are a few. And on the other side, we have that 8% of the women are working in VCs. So what we found out doing in a study was there is a correlation on that. Is that one of the difficulties of the female founders is the access to funding. And it was correlated by the fact that on the other side, the investment side was dominated basically by male. So I think that we have to be aware of that perception in the sense, that difficulty, and also the fact that usually, and this has been studied empirically, when you have the same case between a man and a woman, usually, in general, we tend to take the male case.
You as a woman or the industry in general?
The industry in general, and even sometimes we as women.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fact. I mean, it's there, the numbers, the statistics, and the only thing that I'm trying to do is just to be aware of that perception in order to not to be biased by it.
So what is the message? Women should not be entrepreneurs? Or
No, on the contrary, for instance, I mean, in InnoEnergy, surprisingly, the female founders are 15%, so a bit
higher.
not really good, but a bit higher. And one of the reasons is that in areas of business where they have cross disciplines, for instance, biomedicine plus energy, it is well dominated by women. Or for instance, consumer behaviors in relationship with smart cities and smart buildings. So for me, it is a huge opportunity today, especially after the appearance of the winter package, where they are putting more effort on the customer-centric and the consumer-centric, that is given is giving an opportunity also for women to play a more relevant role.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I think it can sometimes go in either direction. So I personally react very positively when I see women kind of taking charge and creating opportunities for themselves. And I think it's hard to do. And I'd like to see more of it, I guess. But I think I've also seen scenarios where when there was a woman on either side, there was a bit of competitiveness coming out of that. And I think that, unfortunately, sometimes can actually hinder the reaction that women get from each other. And so I hope that we don't do as much of that in the future.
So women may be women's worst enemies. One word to conclude this panel. What would be either your word of wisdom or one advice you would like to give to your male colleagues to increase the number of women in the industry?
But I think, you know, what I was relating to before, as far as you see very few women in our industry, and you see very few VCs backing female-led teams. And I think, you know, our job to select a company to invest in, and we all know that, you know, we think we're going to go in for a few years and it ends up being 7, 8, 10, 12 years that we're invested with these companies. You know, our investments last longer than most marriages. And you know, it's really difficult to take that decision, to evaluate the entrepreneur. And I think that what's happening, and I'm sure that, you know, people that I go to funding are I'm probably unknowingly a victim of the same thing, but on the other side. But, you know, we relate to people that we are similar to, right? And so I think that to recognize that potential bias and to say, you know, be aware that you have a positive bias towards people who are similar to yourself. And because most of the people in our industry are male, they tend to have a bias towards the male entrepreneurs. And I think just openly discussing that amongst the team is helpful already there. We actually see very, very few female entrepreneurs. And we've, I think, invested probably in our portfolio over the last 20 years, I would say probably 5% were female CEOs. But the truth is, even in our deal flow, there's very few. Very few, exactly.
Well, yeah, I was going to say also, in addition to kind of uncovering your own biases, also just to promote different leadership styles. I know that sounds quite basic, but I don't think that we do enough of it. I still think that there's most companies still have a very specific view of how a leader presents himself and what confidence looks like, and what signals quality. And I think that we can all do a lot more in kind of creating a more diverse approach to that.
For me to address to all the men colleagues, on one hand, I think that we in every company we are looking for the best professionals. So it's a question of talent. It's not a question of gender. And I think that we have to be aware that if there is this kind of bias, which is part of, I don't know why it happened, but it happens, then let's try to be unbiased about it, about our business decisions, and include this diversity. And the second message is that how many of you have daughters? Yeah.
Question is interesting.
This is something that when you analyze, I think that when you face and you look at your daughters, probably you are dreaming that your girls have the same opportunities than your boy. So think about that when you are in the business context also.
Yeah, and there are statistics, I was mentioning that before, there are statistics that show that there are more females get promoted more in our VC industry by male bosses who only have daughters, right? Which I think is a funny statistic, right? And I have to also say, I mean, I have to thank the very important first 10 years of my career to 2 bosses who only had daughters. So maybe I was also on the winning side of that equation.
Just maybe to build on your points and bring my own experience. I had a boss, a woman, when I was working at SNCF, the French state-owned railroad company. Her name was Anne-Marie Hydrac. She further became Secretary of State in the French government. And when we had to promote people in the company, she would not accept to look at the promotion if there were not 2 profiles, a man and a woman. A man and a woman. And at equal competencies, she would decide to promote the woman. So it was a 2-step process, which I think is very interesting. You have to progress in a position, you have to propose a man and a woman, which is rarely the case in a VC firm and in companies in general, but even more in VC companies. And then at equal competencies, and sorry for men, then she would promote the lady. And maybe it looks a little bit like quotas, and it's probably not the perfect formula, but think about it.
But also, yeah, and also to discuss it with, when I sit on the boards of companies and I go in there and it's typically all men, I say, okay, we're going to hire, let's say, often hiring a CFO. There are a lot of qualified women CFOs out there, and I always tell them, try to find also some candidates. I'm not saying you have to hire the woman, but find at least some candidates. Try to find some candidates who are women, because I think it also bringing in a certain diversity in those startup teams is also helpful. So it's not just our teams within the VC, but it's also within the startups. I think we can at least bring it up and at least make the suggestion. And one of the guys said he's going to hire an old woman like me. There you go.
Okay. We have 2 or 3 minutes. I know we don't do that, Jan. Can we take 1 question or 2 questions? Because I wouldn't want men to feel that they don't have the right
now
to
you have
answer,
the opportunity to disagree with us.
to react or to answer. We have time for maybe 1 or 2 reaction or questions.
The women can ask questions as well.
And women can ask questions as well. Yes.
I've never seen.
No, I invested in a women-driven team, a company named WeCar, 4 or 5 years ago. But it was a woman leading 50-50 team.
All. I think that, yes.
Yes, now that you think about it, yeah.
But the thing is that you don't analyze this as all men, all women. The only thing that they said, okay, it's fine. Female founders. I think that they are not. I think that they are not best or worst, and I think that this is the important thing. And they have done studies about that. The competencies are the same. So, they are still surviving. So that is what I know, and they are doing business. That is what I know. But usually, interestingly, the motivation when we ask them why they have founded their company, they highlighted 2 factors. One, it was because within their companies they could not find the opportunities to professionally develop, so they started their own company. And the other thing, as it is in the sustainable energy field, that they really wanted to have impact in the world with the little company, but to live a better world. And I think that this is very common when you are talking with female entrepreneurs, that they have this nice spirit really to do something good.
But that's also a lack of diversity.
Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
1 more question, or we close it? So it's time for us to thank Katya, Gina, and Elena.
Thank you.
And to hope that we have brought some energy in the mind-changing point of view with regard to women in the industry.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.